Hello, fellow rights enthusiasts. This week's going to be a little different. Christmas week, so we didn't have time to record. Austin's going to put together our highlights for the year. So it's just going to be exciting. If you're new, it's a good one to start off on. Listen to what we talk about. We are two lawyers in Las Vegas, Shane Cox, Justin Wilson, who practice mostly criminal law, personal injury, some real estate issues. All of this is not legal advice. Consult your local attorney. I always wear a minor league baseball hat. So this is just Las Vegas. This is the new Las Vegas Aviators hat I just got. Their logo. So a simple LV, yellow and orange, mountainous, because Las Vegas is in a valley surrounded by mountains. So check us out. Please enjoy. If you've listened to everything, nothing's going to be new. So sorry, but peace out. Until next year. Bye.
Okay.
Fast forward, how old are we?
This was 2015, a year after I got married.
So
I was 25.
We're fully grown men at this point.
Fully grown
So-
men. And do you like lasers, Paul?
I love. Yes. I watched a YouTube video where this vlogger had a laser, specifically a green one. And I was like, that is cool.
The green ones are the hyper powerful ones.
They're
You can
pretty
like
powerful,
burn
like-
stuff with it, right?
Mine didn't, but you could see it. You didn't need like particles in the air to like refract the light or anything, but you could see it. Like if I pointed it on the wall, you'd see the whole stream. So it was a pretty powerful laser. So I bought one on eBay, and it came to my house, and I would just play with it. I would do like light painting stuff with my GoPro, and then one night we go to my sister's house. She lived in Fullerton, California. And on the way home, I'm playing around with it, like while I'm driving and just shining it at stuff. And I see this drone. I was like, oh, there's a drone in the air. So I take my laser and I shine it up at the drone, and I don't think anything of it. I go down the freeway. I get off at my exit.
Can I ask
My
a
wife-
couple follow-up questions? real
Yes,
quick?
sir.
How
Feel
long,
free to.
How long was it on the drone?
I would say like 5 seconds. I didn't.
So just a quick,
It was the
oh, I hit it, and then we're
that
done.
hit it. Done with it.
Sure.
Wasn't meant to mess with it. Like, obviously I meant to mess with it, but that was about
Sure.
it. Like,
You thought
I
it was
got
a
bored with
drone,
it.
and you were just pointing at it. You
What,
weren't trying
what
to
was
hurt
your point? Were you just trying to see if you could like point it out, like get it on there?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, see if I could
Okay.
see it.
it. All right, so you continue on, and then what?
And then I get these red and blue lights behind me, and my wife's like, "What's that?" I was like, "I don't know." Just pull over. It's like, maybe you saw the laser pointing it outside. I was like, "That's fine." And I waved to the cop to like follow me into this residential, because like I'm on a street that's got a lot of traffic. So I was like, I waved to him. I was like, all right, let's go over here. And he's like, "You've been playing with the laser tonight?" I was like, "I mean, I have one." He's like, "All right, step out of the car." I was like, "Okay, sure." Don't talk to cops. They take my wife. Another officer takes my wife, and we get separated. He checks my license, checks registration, checks all the insurance and stuff. And he's like, "Are you aware that you were pointing a laser at a police helicopter?" I was like, "No, not at all." He's like, "Did you mean to do that?" I was like, "No, I thought it was a drone." And they're like, "Okay, well, come have a seat right here on the curb." And they search the vehicle, they find the laser, and they confiscate it. I didn't hide it or anything.
Did they
It's just-
ask for permission to search the vehicle?
Are you gonna grill me for like doing things wrong?
No,
like,
I'm,
what
no,
not to do?
no.
I'm curious.
We're curious what the cops did and if they.
I think they said, "Hey, we're gonna search your vehicle." I was like, "All right, fine," because at this point I had no idea that I did anything wrong, until the cop that took me aside, put my hands behind my back, cuffed me, and said, "Hey, you have the right to remain silent. You have,
Anything you say
Anything
can and will.
be used against you in a court of law.
Yep." So I was like,
the
"These are
right
my
to
Miranda rights. Like, am I being arrested?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm going to jail?" They're like, "Well, we're gonna take you in." I'm like, "What?" And my wife is hysterical. She is crying. She's like, I'm trying to hold it together. I'm like, "All right, it's okay. Just like
She married
figure
a
this
criminal.
I know.
A hardcore criminal.
And so they put me in the back of the squad car, and my wife is still crying. And I'm like, "Can I like roll down the window to talk to my wife or something? And they're like, no, you can't. I was like, well, look at her. She's like crying over there. And they didn't let me. They just asked me some questions. And on the way to the police station, so they take me away. They let my wife go. And I think at that point she like called her parents or called my sister or something. And so they let me go. No, I'm sorry. They didn't let me go at all. They took me to the station and they're like asking me questions. They're like, hey, you didn't know that was a helicopter? I was like, no, not at all. I was like, if you did know that was a helicopter, would you have done it? I was like, no way. Like, I'm never intended to like harm someone. So they explained what happens when you shine a laser at an aircraft. Like, it'll hit the windshield and it'll spider web and they can't see. And the way they can see it is like I said, you can see the stream. So they just followed it back to this little white car and said, PD, this is who you need to go get. They shined a laser at me. So they took me in.
Did the helicopter follow you?
It must have, because the cops found me.
Was it dark out or light out at the
It
time?
was like 9 o'clock at night. So
How long between the time you shined the laser at the car or the helicopter and you got pulled over?
About 15 minutes.
Wow.
That's
15
an expensive,
They were following you then.
expensive thing for them to do, to follow a guy with a laser pointer. Good job, Orange County. Way to
seriously.
properly allocate your funds.
Did they make you sign something waiving your rights? Miranda rights?
I don't think so.
When they gave you the card, they didn't have you sign an acknowledgement that they Mirandized you.
Not
Some
that
places do.
I
Some
don't
places
remember.
don't.
Okay. Yeah, and that's
Anyway.
jurisdiction dependent. Okay.
Sure. So you get there. They tell you this. They tell you about the spider web. What happens next?
We get there, and then the cops, they were kind of cool, because I was like being cool with them. I didn't have any reason to be mad. I was just like a little upset that I was going to jail or prison or whatever. And so they took the laser pointer, like pointing out in the fucking net, like, dang, this thing's actually pretty cool. I was like, you guys are being jerks right now. Like, I said that in my head, but like I was just quiet.
Yeah, it is cool, Officer Barb Brady. Yeah. Thank you.
And we go inside, they search me, and they take my little shot. They do my fingerprints, and they're like, bail's $20,000. And I'm like,
What?
$20,000? I can't pay that. Like, what am I going to do? And like, you probably should post bail. And I didn't know what any of this meant. I was like, you should probably post bail tonight because it's Memorial Day weekend, and you'll probably be transferred to county if you don't get out tonight. I'm like, I have no control over this. I have no idea what bail is. I have no idea why I'm here. I had no idea that was a freaking helicopter. So I'm just freaking out. I call my wife. She's like, I think we're going to post bail. I don't know what to do. My dad's helping me. I was like, all right. So I got a bail bondsman, and I was out at like 5 a.m. They gave me like a little bed. They put me in like one of the cells, like I guess the drunk tanks or whatever. And I just slept a little bit. And
$20,000 bail for
So it was-
shining a laser pointer.
so
What
it
the?
ended up being $2,000. So
Yeah, sure, because you pay 10%, but it doesn't matter. 20 grand? Jeez.
yeah.
So
Okay, what were you charged
There was a
with?
crime that you were charged with, right?
It was a crime. It was a felony. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you to read the actual.
Right. So we looked this up, and Paul owes me $1.50 for searching this because Orange County charges you to look up cases. So
Or you could have just Googled it and it would have been real easy. And you could find it on codes.findlaw.com. Which is
no,
what I
the
did.
case, and what he was charged
Oh,
with
oh.
You found the case.
specifically. I
Okay.
found his case. California Penal Code 247.5. Discharge of a laser at an aircraft. I have been just watching this diligently. It's just captivated me for a while because I have a personal involvement.
Vendetta.
Not a vendetta, but I was a law school classmate of Robert Tellis and knew him during law school. And I grew up here. And so I have a lot of personal kind of tie-ins that I will tell you guys about as we go through this episode.
All right. Robert Tellis. What was his job?
I'm going to go way back.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to start from the beginning.
When did you meet him?
Well, Robert Tellis was born in Biloxi, Mississippi. And you'll see I have a hat for the Biloxi Shuckers, named because they're right there on the coast. Biloxi is known for its seafood, so this is an oyster. So Biloxi Shuckers is the hat for today's episode because Robert Tellis was born in Biloxi. So my first experience is I show up at law school, orientation.
When was this? 19 what?
No, 2012.
Oh, okay.
August 2012. We have orientation at law school, and this bald-headed little short guy is the law school student body president.
That means he's popular, right?
And maybe. No. You can tell that he's a little self-important. You know, he thinks he's pretty cool.
Okay, like what made you be able to see that?
I just think you can tell that about somebody like
Right, but usually there's like an air of cockiness,
Yes.
or
self-confidence.
that one, or one of my favorites is when you're talking to somebody and they put on that kind of fake, like the self-deprecating humor, but they always talk about themselves, or anytime someone's telling something, they'll one-up them.
No.
And that's different than story time. As humans, as especially a Midwesterner, we love that. We'll be just sitting around a campfire telling stories, but there's always that one guy, you know?
There's no self-deprecation with him. It's
Okay.
just like the first thing that I heard and remember from this man is, this is serious. Law school is very serious, and you know we're doing important things here. And
No, we're not. It's all a joke. Everything we do is a joke.
And if you've watched us at all, you know that I love hats, and I've been collecting hats since 2007, and so I loved hats then. And Robert Tellis comes up and says, you know, guys, it is not professional to be wearing hats in law school. I'm like, okay, yeah, like that makes sense. This is kind of professional. But I was like,
Wait,
this guy's kind of a...
I'm going to interject a little bit because I want to fill in some things. When he introduced himself, how did he hi, my name is?
I don't remember. This is 12 years ago. This
Okay,
is the
well,
one thing that I remember.
Did he go by Bob? Rob?
No.
Was he a Robert?
He was Robert Tellis or Rob.
Okay, so he did have a
Sometimes,
short
but
nickname, right?
Robert Tellis. And
that's-
this is important. Tellis. His name was Tellis.
That's how he'd say it?
That's how he'd say it all the time.
Robert Tellis.
Not
Don't forget the name.
a Hispanic pronunciation, Teyes, which comes out in the murder trial that we're going to talk about. His last name's pronounced differently at trial, but that's
So
just...
he do you think he whitewashed it?
Maybe. And maybe there is something that, you know... But we're in Las Vegas. Like,
Right.
We're a big Hispanic town. Like, you can say Teyes, but people are going to
Most
default
people
to
can't
tell
say
us.
that, actually, probably.
Yeah, maybe that's it. So, you know, okay. So that's very first experience with him.
No hats.
No hats.
It's unprofessional.
And I'm like, all right, whatever. But pretty soon after, the law school, as it does, has a lot of parties because, as we've talked about before, grad students, this is your group that you hang out with.
And it sucks, so you got to blow off some steam.
Yes. So they have a party, and lo and behold, Robert Tellis, after this party, I don't go because I am not in that scene. I'm married already. So I
He
got
does
my own
not.
life.
What's your favorite party drink, Shane? Real quick.
I don't drink. I've never drank, ever.
I asked you what your favorite party drink was, not whether you drink alcohol.
Oh, Monster.
See?
Peachy
Yeah,
Keen.
there you
This
go,
is my
guys.
favorite
right.
energy drink in the whole world, and I'm ready to get amped for this.
At a party, what happens?
At a party, afterwards, it is found out and that there is an accusation. I'll call it an accusation.
So it was
I not
alleged
there.
that something happened.
It was alleged that Robert Tellis had inappropriately touched a first-year law student who she had just started law school with all of us.
What year was he at this time? Was he a 3L?
He was a part-time student, so this was his. Yes, he was a part-time student.
Part-time student, student body president?
He was a nighttime student. Yeah, something you need to know about Robert is he just always seemed like one of those aspirational people. There were rumors afterwards that he had aspirations to be governor someday.
So he had like a lot of involvement. He was
one of those that involved himself in things and just wanted to be the leader.
Was he a gunner, or was he just doing like
I didn't have
extracurricular stuff?
I think I maybe only had one class with him, but we call gunners people who love to raise their hand in law school. They are gunning. Hey, I want to be the one because, hey, a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen, congresswomen come from law school lawyers.
Congresspersons.
Whatever they're called, they come from law school, a lot of them. So
Also,
there's a lot of, we call them gunners, ready to raise their hand. Well, actually, what I think about this is this.
1771. The other thing is that you've got a bunch of type A people in a room with a bunch of other type A, most of them relatively intelligent. I mean, if I'm not being a jerk. And they all want to be the smartest one in the room.
Yes, they want to outdo each other.
Yeah.
And he's from Las Vegas and goes to law school in Las Vegas and wants to be the biggest fish in a small pond or whatever. So I was not friends with him. He was not the kind of person that I wanted to be friends with. I kind of had my own thing going on. I was with my wife already, so I spent my free time with her. I grew up here.
You guys like each other?
Me and my wife?
Yeah.
We did then.
Sick.
We do now.
You just been liking each other. How long have you been married?
Now it's been 14 years.
Jesus.
14
Congratulations, my boy.
Thank you. Love
That's
you,
wild.
Hannah.
Number one supporter. Always the first one to watch our show and say that I curse too much.
She gives me actual feedback instead of some people,
Oh yeah, they're too nice.
Just being nice.
Yeah, she's been married too long enough. She can be mean.
Okay, so sex assault accusations of touching a female law student inappropriately.
Okay.
What comes out after is some students that are also on the student body, the organizations that want to hold a vote to have him removed.
Vote of no confidence?
That is what ends up happening, yes. So we are part of an email listserv that goes back and forth, and there's people, gathering in support of Robert Tellis and people, against Robert Tellis wanting him to get removed. So they look at the student bylaws. They try and get the student body police involved. But the stories are the girl just did not want to come forward. She didn't want to ruin her legal career. And Robert was a person to go after people. And he pushed back and would not step down. And so eventually there is a vote, and he does leave office as the student body president because of this. So that is my involvement with Robert.
This was an alleged murder for hire plot. Those were two of the counts that he got convicted of, right? And the alleged hitman, who was obviously, a major star witness for the government at trial, has now fully recanted in a sworn affidavit on camera and said that the whole thing was fake and that it never happened. And so, it's just out. And there were multiple other witnesses who have now recanted their testimony, really gutting the government's case. And when you really think about it from that standpoint, we are obviously very hopeful, and we think that he should be at the very least granted a new trial.
And for the purported hitman, does he say what his motivation was for testifying wrongfully before?
So if you watch the second season of the Tiger King, that's actually really brought into focus kind of the just all of the different plots and plans that were in place to attack Joe Exotic, to harm his business interests, to harm his reputation of various actors, and so he was really just set up, I think in light of what we're going to show in terms of new evidence. We hope that the 10th Circuit at least grants him a new trial. Honestly, I think the government should just dismiss the case.
Yeah, I mean, he's already spent he's been in since 2018, so close to 6 years in prison at this point, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I'm not certain of, because I'm from Oklahoma and I actually interned with the U.S. Attorney's Office there in Oklahoma City after my 1L year of law school. But I have no idea what they usually do when you get a case set for a new trial. As far as the U.S. Attorney's Office there, is it a situation where they're likely to give you some kind of deal and just say, okay, credit for time served, take this felony on your record, go away? Or are they going to go full guns blazing on something like this and try to do a full new trial, you think?
Well, I'll tell you, I have I've seen it go both ways. Frequently, they have 30 days to declare to the judge. If an upper court orders a new trial, they have 30 days to declare whether or not they're going to pursue a new trial. And they do size up how many years the person has spent in prison. What's the benefit of a new trial? The witnesses, or are they still around? Are they still on the government side or whatnot? And so frequently they make the call not to pursue a new trial. Now, I've seen also, there are murder cases where frequently at the state level, where the prosecutors will just keep trying and retrying, and no matter how many times an appellate court finds errors, they just keep one trial after another. And I think the all-time record might be 7 or 8 trials in a murder case, Louisiana or Mississippi somewhere. So in those kinds of cases, they do just keep coming.
Sure.
But in this case, the sentence is 21 years. He's already done, arguably a third of that, something like that. The witnesses have recanted. let's put it this way. I'll just say, if I were a prosecutor, I wouldn't. If this 10th Circuit rules the right way and orders a new trial, or at least bare minimum orders the lower court to more properly analyze the application for a new trial, let's put it that way. If I were a federal prosecutor, I would drop it right then, because these witnesses, now they've all changed their story. They have all recanted and indicated they gave improper testimony at the original trial. Now, what do you do if you're a prosecutor with that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I was a state prosecutor before, and that's not the situation I want to find myself in. I can tell you, putting my prosecutor hat back on, I'm a defense attorney now. That would be a real difficult situation, and you're faced then with the question: am I going to try to bring them up on perjury charges?
It's so bizarre. John mentioned the problems with the so-called hired hitman. The hired hitman has never been even threatened with prosecution. Now, think about how strange that is. Not even a hint, not a threat of arrest. And the lower judge, I guess, explained this, saying, well, he never meant to go through with it. He was lying from the very beginning. Now, just think about that. Now, the situation, as you know, is a little bit complicated.
Sure.
There was this Tiger King TV producer who was actually paying. There were film producers paying almost all the material witnesses, got payments of one kind or another. Arguably, I think we would argue that they were being paid for dramatic effect. All right. And so this actually does enter into, the version of events from the perspective of every single witness. So if this hired hitman never meant, he was lying the entire time, never meant to go through with it, and that's the basis for the explanation of not even to threaten to charge him, what does that say about, entrapment? What does that say about what really happened? I would argue that in the context of this, it never happened. It just did not happen.
Sure.
That, Joe Maldonado, of course, that's his real name. He's I'll just say a shit talker. I don't know if I can say that on this
You're fine.
broadcast.
You're fine.
He's a guy that obviously likes to shoot his mouth off a lot.
Sure.
And that's part of his persona, his character. He's a very colorful character. So that really played the role, and that really is the essence of what happened.
Sure.
This was a guy who talked a lot of shit, and he did have the animosity with Carol Baskin, of course, is very real. She was the rival zoo owner and had a tiger, a so-called rescue zoo in Florida. Right. The rivalry is very real. But nonetheless, a lot of this was nothing but chit chat and talk and hyperbole.
So your life has not always been as great as it is right now. Is that correct?
That's a fair statement.
Fair to say?
Yeah.
You've had some times. Well, we've all had down times, right? Everybody has times where they're not doing as good as they are today, maybe.
Some span a bit longer than others, and
perhaps a little deeper.
Yeah, a little bit deeper.
Makes you appreciate the good times, though, right?
For sure.
Hopefully.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Give me like the bumper sticker, and then let's dive into it.
So I spent over 20 years incarcerated in the Federal Bureau of Prisons on a 213-year sentence, mandatory minimum. I was never supposed to be released. Fortunately, Congress finally decided to change the law, some of the mandatory minimums that were enacted back in the 90s that led to these draconian sentences. And honestly, when I received the sentence, there was no hope. Like when my appeals became final, that was it. No one was talking about criminal justice reform, and it was always hard on crime. Like no one wanted to appear as being soft. So over the course of 2 decades, I didn't just passively sit on the sidelines and watch and wait for something to happen. I was very active in petitioning the courts and working with a number of advocacy organizations, including Families Against Mandatory Minimums. My wife became a staunch advocate. She started a nonprofit called Strong Prison Wives and Families that served as an outside advocacy organization even right up to the point of her and my mother being at the candlelight vigil outside of the White House in the final hours of the Obama administration when they were giving out clemencies. Everyone referred to it as the clemency lottery. Like, you get clemency and you get clemency.
The Oprah Winfrey of clemency.
Exactly. That's pretty much, that's how we perceived it.
Right.
And they blast these lists out, and nobody knew when they were coming. Nobody knew who was going to be on those lists. But
They were just sitting there crossing their fingers, being like,
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
that's what it was. And man, that was the most difficult time of my entire 20 plus years incarcerated.
End of Obama, that would be
2016.
2016. So
Yep.
at that point, how long had you been in prison?
16 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when were you sentenced? I'm assuming you remember the date.
2001. To be honest, I don't remember what the actual date
Okay.
was. My sentencing wasn't significant. The day that I was convicted by the jury due to the mandatory minimums, I already knew.
You knew it was going to happen.
I knew I had hundreds of years that were coming to me. At that point, it didn't really matter. It was the sentencing component was pretty insignificant, right?
Because
It was just a formality.
Your
yeah.
lawyer probably prepped you very well, saying, hey, if this, then that. And so you knew if you got convicted, what was going to happen.
I was very active in my own defense.
Okay.
So played an active role all the way through it, to the point where every day when we would make the trek through the tunnel underground from the federal detention center, which ironically, I watched this building being built, 7th and Arch, used to drive by it every single day. Like, my case, all of my crimes, the majority of them take place within like 10 square block radius around that facility and around the courthouse. So I drive by this place every day, not knowing what's being constructed here. And suddenly I'm here on the 5th floor looking out this window, trying to squeeze my face into this narrow window to look down at the street and get someone's attention. Because this is 2000, like, communication wasn't the same as it is today. Sure. And it was a really challenging experience. But every day I'm going over to court and I'm carrying this laundry bag, a mesh net bag with all my legal docs, all these manila envelopes, discovery, who is supposed to testify that day. And I've gone through every piece of paper, trying to mount some sort of defense. Mind you, I'm admittedly guilty of everything that I'm charged with. The issue is that everyone involved in my case has criminal background, is all involved in illegal activity. So everybody's dirty. Nobody wants to talk about any of the other things. I'm just trying to bring up enough to cast doubt on, the veracity of any individual who's coming into court to testify against us. That was the basic strategy.
So was it a situation where you were either all going to swim or sink together?
There were 5 of us who were arrested. One immediately began cooperating, which, through statements that he made to local authorities, saying that he had connections, he had information related to drug trafficking with links to organized crime. At that time, they were mounting a huge case against Italian organized crime in Philadelphia. This immediately caught people's attention, namely the FBI. But he said, I'll talk to the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, anybody who wants to listen. Local detectives got excited. They're like, hey, we got a live one down here. You better come talk to him. And that started the ball rolling. That's why they took us into federal court. And ultimately, it's why they charged us with the mandatory minimums as leverage to get the rest of us to cooperate, which they didn't expect us to go to trial. But that was the decision. I didn't feel like I had a choice in that. It was all or nothing. And I said, I'm not going to put someone else in this same position, where their life is on the line. Because ultimately that's what they wanted to do.
Do you know what happened with respect to that guy? Did his statement get him any sort of benefit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He ended up in the witness protection program, actually. washed out of it and is now, last I heard, incarcerated in California on a botched robbery, homicide for a string of jewelry stores out there. But he's under a new name. But when, resources ran out, he contacted people from his past.
Sure.
So that word has kind of traveled back. At this, like, I really don't care. I'm so separated from that. But it is kind of ironic that, he's the one who got the break and has chosen to like continue to live that way, while myself and one of my other co-defendants who went to trial together are all doing pretty well at this point. It's just, a little ironic. I mean,
it is very ironic. I don't think that's a little ironic at all. And the only reason I even asked that question about what sort of benefit did that get him is because a lot of people sometimes are under the assumption that if they have information, and let's say it is verifiable, decent information about some other crime or whatever, that's going to give them a benefit. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I've had a defendant recently who was looking at just a small amount of time, relatively speaking, compared to 20 years. And on our first meeting, he's like, I can't go to prison. I will tell you everything. And I'm like, okay.
I'm ready to turn.
If that's
on
what you want to
whoever.
do. And he started singing like a canary. And they didn't seem like they cared.
No.
I sent the information and didn't hear nothing back. I'm like, sorry, buddy. It's not going to work for you. So, I mean, because they have the right to say, okay, cool. Thanks. Appreciate you. I mean, granted, that can screw up the testimony later, right? If they need that person to testify or to do whatever, but at least it gets them where they need to start the investigation, as you just said, right?
Exactly.
Because the fingers then start getting pointed in the right directions. They start flipping over the right rocks and finding other stuff. Well, I don't need you anymore. You gave me exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
So that's a really unfortunate position to be in. You brought it up, so I don't want to. I want to be very clear. I don't want to dwell on the underlying reasons, but if you're comfortable talking about it,
yeah, I'm absolutely
okay. So let's.
Go ahead.
What happened? What were the crimes? You mentioned them a couple of times.
Yep. Crimes are a string of robberies, primarily Asian massage parlors that were known to traffic in prostitution, gambling, drugs, all of those things. These were like serious robberies, like kicking down doors. Most of them have security.
I think I know why. Lots of cash on hand.
Supposedly lots of cash on hand.
Well, that's the rumor anyway, right? Okay.
You got to know when it's there.
Sure.
Like these are well organized. It's all Asian organized crime.
So what is it like Yakuza or whatever the Chinese mob or whatever?
Yeah, there's
Something.
different factions of
Okay.
Asian organized crime that control these, and it's not all connected together, but
And these were armed robberies, correct?
yes, armed robberies, firearms, and there were a couple accidental discharges, ironically, from the guys who cooperated.
Somebody just Indeed while they were committing a robbery. What the heck?
Yeah.
What kind of weapons did you guys use? And did you do it at daytime or nighttime?
Nighttime, always at nighttime. Generally, handguns, firearms, but on the night that we were arrested, there were vests and M16s, not ARs.
M16A1, like the fully automatic versions?
Yeah,
Woo.
off of the base from we're in South Jersey, Fort Dix, which I'm sure that led to a whole separate investigation because that individual also eventually agreed to cooperate. And, back in those days, like we were talking about, this is the late 90s going into, this is the turn of the millennia. It's early 2000. It was like the Wild West back then. So not only Philadelphia was like that, Camden right next door, where I had previously done time in the state system, which 18 to 21, that's pretty much where I grew up. And that's where I met two of my co-defendants in prison, right? And one of them was living in South Jersey, just off the base. And there was all sorts of stuff coming off that base that the public would be very disturbed in addition to firearms, guys would go out, bury the ordnance explosives that were supposed to be detonated, and then go back and get it.